Hi everyone! Today I'm going to talk about a daily spiritual practice, and this is actually going to be, for the moment anyway, the last video in the Paving Your Own Path series. Now, this is not because I've run out of material by any means. This is actually because I've had a few new ideas about how I want to put forth the content that I wanted to include in this series. So I'm going to be thinking more about that and working on things. So rest assured there will be more content on this topic coming up, but I think for the moment I want to sort of finish this series off, have it as a kind of a standalone series, and then if I do want to come back and do videos on the topic, I might add to it later, or I might just, start a new series or just continue making videos on the channel around those other topics. So a daily spiritual practice is actually quite a broad concept, and particularly because not everybody who is spiritual or religious will have a daily practice, and then on the flip side, quite a lot of people who don't consider themselves to be spiritual or religious actually do have some sort of daily practice of well-being, like meditation, or maybe they draw tarot cards and they don't associate that with spirituality in any way. And your daily practice is really just so broad and open in possibility that you can really, it can be as elaborate or as simple as you want. I suppose that's generally true in any component of spirituality. It can be whatever you want, like the world really is your oyster, and even in terms of ritual, different people's rituals will look totally different. But daily practice is really a very, very broad catch-all kind of term. And like I say, not everybody will have a daily practice. You might feel like having a daily practice is just a bit too overwhelming for you, or you might be trying to maybe squeeze too much into your daily practice. You might be trying to conduct full ritual every day or something like that. But I personally believe that daily practice is hugely important. It is your touchstone in your spiritual life. It's just that kind of center that you can keep coming back to again and again, and it kind of centers you and grounds you in your spirituality. And then even if you're going through a phase of life where you're not finding the time to do elaborate ritual, or where things just aren't really kind of working out for you right with your kind of ritual and your more formal celebrations, your daily practice is something that will always be there for you, and that it's quite simple to slip back into. And with any luck, if you manage to come up with a system that is quite repetitious and that you can almost do kind of on autopilot, then it is something that you can, even if you do fall out of the habit, you can quite easily kind of slip back into it and reintegrate yourself into that spiritual mindset. I think it's hugely important to have a daily practice in order to keep yourself ticking over spiritually, to keep yourself in that mindset, and then to, not kind of feel like when a celebration comes around that you're just not in the right headspace for it. Because if you have a daily practice, you're putting down those kind of foundational slabs, I suppose, all the time. You are paving your path, literally, day by day. So as I've mentioned before, I think it's really important to keep your spiritual practice, your daily practice, very, very simple and short, particularly in the beginning when you're starting out with developing a spiritual practice from scratch. You might be kind of tempted to try a whole host of different things. You might kind of think, oh, but I want to try this and that. I want to meditate, and I also want to work with my chakras every day, and I want to draw a tarot card, and I want to do a prayer, and I want to... I think that can be a little bit overwhelming too. And you can by all means change up your daily practice, but I think it might be best to stick with maybe 2 different things every day, if that doesn't seem, 1 or 2 things every day, whatever seems more manageable to you, and kind of the shortest amount of time that you can do that will make you feel kind of satisfied with your daily practice. I really think starting small, and meditation teachers will generally tell you this as well, to start your meditation practice very, very short, just 5 minutes, and to very gradually build on that. Because if you try and jump into it like just full on, and then you're just going to scare yourself. You're just not going to be able to find the time, and the whole thing will probably start to unravel, or it's more likely to kind of fall apart on you. Whereas little 5-minute chunks in your day are very, very easy to sort of slot in with your day, to not be able to kind of talk yourself out of. Because if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, it's much harder to kind of say to yourself, oh, I don't have the time, I'm too tired. It's just 5 minutes. It won't kill you to do it. And that gets you into this flow of doing something every day. So I would definitely suggest Particularly, I would suggest maybe 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, and dedicating yourself to that, just saying, I'm definitely doing that much. That is non-negotiable. And then around that, you can add on more as you feel you want to. You can try different things out. Like one day, maybe you'll feel like meditating for half an hour in the morning, because you have, you woke up early or something, and then another day you won't. But I would definitely suggest to have those very kind of core, maybe morning and evening, for example, if you can find the time, or whatever time of the day you can kind of find the time that it will actually happen, place that there, set that in motion, and then kind of you can let it organically flow from there. I will also say that I think it might be a good idea to have some components of your daily practice that are fixed, that don't change, that you can kind of get into a flow with, and like I say, that you're almost on autopilot with them, because it's a great way to get your mind just used to the idea and just for it to be a habit. And then, again, as well as that, around that, if you keep those core components quite short and sweet, then it's quite easy to build on that and change things up as you want to. But if you just have those short little pieces, those kind of bookends on your day maybe, and these things can really just be anything you want to do. It can be 5 minutes of meditation twice a day. It can be saying a particular prayer in the morning and evening, or just once a day. It can be lighting candles, lighting incense, making an offering, drawing a tarot card and journaling, really anything like that. Like whatever thing you think of that seems spiritually related that you might want to do every day, that can be your daily practice. But I would say just pick two things, maybe two short things that you are definitely going to do every day, non-negotiable, and everything else is negotiable. So for example, for me, like I have so many different things that I do on a regular basis that I consider to be part of my ongoing kind of daily-ish practice, but not all of them will have it happen every single day. So what is non-negotiable for me is an absolute minimum of 10 minutes meditation in the morning and 10 minutes meditation in the evening. Sometimes that meditation will just be on the breath, sometimes it will be on the chakras, or I will go through prayer beads or whatever, but those 10 minutes of meditation is absolutely non-negotiable. In the mornings then, I also tend to go through the prayer beads and do various different kinds of well-being practices, but I'll get into that again in a second. And I have devotional prayers that I say to the Morrigan. That has become quite non-negotiable for me now too, but I do allow myself to kind of play with that and change it up. And then in the evening, usually I will do 20 minutes. So that's my kind of those are my bookends in my daily practice. And for the most part, they will always happen. And like I say, a minimum of 10 minutes on either end. So if I am really, really tired, if I've come home from a night out, and it's late and I'm like, oh, I just want to go to bed, I just say to myself, 10 minutes. What's 10 fewer minutes in bed? It won't kill me. And I'm always pleased that I did it. Now, sometimes I don't, but most of the time I do. But then I also have things that I do on a regular basis, like drawing tarot cards, doing tarot readings for myself. I journal nearly every day. I have a self-love and gratitude journal, which I made a video about recently, that I write in on a fairly regular basis, perhaps every 2 days, realistically speaking. I have an ongoing shadow work practice, which is once a week. I journal in my spiritual journal or book of mirrors. So lots of journaling. That happens quite a lot as well. Another thing that I do every single day, which I do consider to be part of my daily practice, is go for walks. And that is quite easy to make myself do because it's also exercise. It gets me out of the house, it gets me fresh air, and that I definitely consider that to be part of my daily practice. Another thing I will mention is creative work, artistic creativity, and I definitely consider that to be part of my spirituality as well. It's an expression of my inner self, and quite often it will be quite overtly linked to expressions of devotion. So painting or weaving or writing poetry or just writing in general. But all of these things, if I try, and yoga, sorry, one more thing, yoga. Yoga again, maybe every second day. So obviously if I tried to do absolutely all of those things every single day, I would become totally overwhelmed and it wouldn't work. I would have no time whatsoever in my life for anything else. So I think the important thing is to just pick out the two main things that you really want to focus on. And for you, it might not involve sitting at an altar space at all. It might be journaling and a walk outside. And maybe I would suggest if you're going to incorporate a walk outside as part of your the kind of core components of your daily practice, I would suggest that you try to make it a mindful walk, that you really try to focus on your sense of connection and things like that, rather than just letting yourself kind of, wander off in your mind and think about all sorts of other mundane things. It's really nice sometimes to make that kind of a mindful exercise and to really sense your connection to nature and things like that as you do it. So you might be wondering at this point, how do I decide what I want to do for my daily spiritual practice? Like, there are so many options, there are so many different takes on it, there are so many different avenues you can go down, and so many different focus areas. I definitely think that your daily practice should be, at its core, a reflection of your primary spiritual purpose. And if you haven't gotten to grips with your primary spiritual purpose yet, then do go and journal about it and make sure that you're really, really clear on what it is you want to feel with your spirituality, what it is you want to achieve with it, who you're talking to. Are you talking to anyone apart from yourself? Who is hearing your prayers? Is anyone hearing your prayers? Just all of those kinds of questions of purpose, why you're doing what you're doing. And when you're very clear about your purpose, your spiritual purpose, then the core ones, the most important ones, or maybe there's only one really, really important purpose, then it'll become clear to you that you want to focus on that on a daily basis. And the most important purpose of your spiritual practice should definitely be what your daily practice kind of focuses on. So if your core purpose of your spiritual practice, for example, is to explore the kind of inner realms of your psyche and to create a better connection with your deep self, then journaling might be a wonderful daily practice for you, as something that you do on a kind of in a kind of spiritual manner. And then if devotion to maybe to a particular deity, or just devotion in general, is your core kind of feeling that you want to evoke through your spirituality, then making offerings every day or saying prayers every day will be what you want to focus on. A great way of getting really clear on your spiritual purpose is to come up with some keywords, maybe a specific number of keywords or concepts that you feel your spirituality kind of revolves around and that you want to kind of keep coming back to and keep evoking in yourself. And these can change all the time, and they do change all the time for me. And they can be as specific or as vague as you want. One of them might be connecting to a specific deity, for example, or connecting to a very specific kind of feeling or what have you. For example, mine at the moment are connection, wonder, reverence, peace, and empowerment. So that's quite a diverse list of keywords, and they do actually encompass both kind of more well-being, kind of self-development kind of aspects, focusing on the self, and also then kind of reverential, devotional kind of aspects, focusing on other and focusing on the all and on the divine. I think that daily practice, maybe even more than spiritual practice in general, is quite polarized when it comes to whether you're focusing on well-being or devotion. I have talked about this repeatedly in this series about with spiritual practice, that it often contains different kind of practices that focus on one or the other, maybe both at the same time, but that most people are somewhere on the spectrum, and your individual practices in your spirituality will be somewhere on that spectrum between devotion and kind of focusing on the self or well-being. But yeah, your daily practice, it will feel even more overt, I think, whether you're focusing on well-being or devotion. And I think that's something, again, to be clear on what it is, which is more important for you, I suppose, to be acknowledging on a daily basis, or maybe you want to do both. And your kind of bookends, they could involve, both. One of them could be for devotion, the other could be for well-being. And I think this is just because your daily practice is basically your spirituality distilled to a fine point. And that's what you're really aiming for with a daily practice. Not that it's sort of a scattered, random bunch of things that you happen to do on a daily or almost daily basis. That's fine, and those can be your extracurricular things that you throw in there, like I was saying, with the yoga and journaling and everything for me. But I think that those core parts of your daily practice, I think you will feel much more connected to your spirituality, and you will feel much more satisfied with your spiritual practice if you actually connect your core components of your daily practice to the kind of the most, like I say, your spirituality distilled to a fine point, to the kind of key points of your spirituality. And like I say, once you start looking at distilling your spirituality into those kind of bite-sized chunks, it will become really clear whether you want to focus more on well-being or devotion, or, like I say, both. So just briefly now, I'm going to run through a couple of different examples of daily practices that are more focused on well-being and daily practices that are more focused on devotion. So Kellyanne of the Four Queens has made quite a few videos. She's made quite a few videos on daily practice in general, but specifically recently she made a video on setting your daily intention, or your kind of your vibration. I'll link that video below because that was wonderful. That was really inspirational, and that is one kind of major way that you can go about incorporating a practice of well-being into your daily practice, is through setting your intention for yourself every day. And this is very much, like I say, focused on the self. And it doesn't have to be selfish just because it's focused on the self, because okay, if you're setting your intention every day, you're setting your energy, you are deciding how you want to feel, how you want to respond to the world, what you want to feel and what you want to emanate. And that's not only going to affect you, but it's going to affect everyone around you. And if you manage to find a really centered, calm place, a really clear place of love and compassion and passion, then you're much more likely to be able to emanate really wonderful things out into the world, to be able to act with compassion, to be able to share those parts of you that are most nurturing to the world and to other people. So I think that's a really wonderful thing to incorporate into your daily practice. Some form of grounding or centering yourself, just getting yourself into the kind of mindset, the kind of feeling that you want to be in. And this will take some, like as Kellyanne said, this will take a little bit of experimentation, and different for everybody. Like what it is that gets you there will vary from person to person, and that's just something that you might want to play with. So this is a wonderful thing in particular to do in the morning, and that is something that I do incorporate into my practice. I made a video on my daily practice recently as well, which does kind of particularly talk about kind of doing chakra work and setting intentions in the morning. So I'll link that below as well, because that's going to be particularly relevant here. So I've mentioned chakra work. Any of those kinds of new age practices can be wonderful ways of setting your energy, your intention every day as well. And any of those kinds of practices, like using crystals, doing chakra work, drawing tarot cards, or what have you, anything like that that is overtly focused on well-being and just kind of balancing yourself, is a really wonderful way to achieve this. So then we have meditation, and meditation is, people use meditation for so many different reasons, and there are so many different ways to meditate, and it's almost infinite in its capacity. But meditation is one of those things that kind of straddles the boundary. It can be anywhere really on the spectrum, but it is like, even if you are meditating in a devotional manner and you see your meditation as a practice of devotion, it still does have those wonderful kind of effects of well-being. It has really well documented effects on your psyche, on your body. It's just really wonderful and healing. So meditation is a wonderful thing to kind of, I would actually suggest that everybody has a meditation practice, no matter how religious or spiritual you are or you aren't. I'm just a big proponent of meditation. I think it should be required almost. So I would definitely suggest that you try meditation. And like I say, there are loads of different ways to meditate. If you struggle with meditating on the breath, then maybe, have a look at different types of meditations that you can do that you might find a bit easier. You can certainly research that quite easily. Or, try just meditating for 5 minutes on the breath at a time, and just keep working at that, keep chipping away at it. And you might surprise yourself. You might find that after a while, your mind does start to kind of settle a little bit, that you can actually find that place of stillness. I'll make another video on meditation actually, and again, you know, there's so many good videos on meditation online. I just want to mention very briefly that if you are struggling with meditation, it's important to remember that, like, I don't think anybody, I don't think your average meditator, you know, actually manages to find a completely blank, clean, empty mind. I don't think that's necessarily possible. It's not even what you're aiming for. What you're aiming for is just to kind of release the chatter, to allow it to kind of happen. It's going to happen. All these thoughts are going to be floating into your head, but it's just about releasing and not grasping and allowing and just finding a place of stillness, not necessarily silence. You might not manage silence, but just to find kind of a feeling of stillness and relaxation and awareness. And just to be aware of the churning that's going on in your mind. But anyway, that's a topic for a whole other video. And then drawing tarot cards and oracle cards is another kind of practice that can really be very much to do with well-being. It can be kind of setting yourself up for the day. It can be more of a devotional practice too. And I like to experiment a lot with drawing tarot cards for deities, drawing random tarot cards to suggest how I might work with a deity at a particular time. Sometimes I draw tarot cards in offering to deities as a sort of way of offering particular kinds of energies. And I will either draw them randomly, or sometimes I choose them specifically, that I decide this is the energy I want to offer up to this deity at this time. So I will, you know, pick out the tarot card that I want and place it on the altar, on that deity's altar. So there's really quite a lot of scope for tarot cards and oracle cards as well. And I mean, they are just wonderful for daily practice. And like I say, there's so many other different options other than just picking a card for the day and saying, right, well, today I'd better, you know, watch out for losing my temper or whatever. Like, there's so much more you can do with a deck of cards than just your traditional daily draw. So then in terms of devotional work, I don't think there's any real mystery here. Saying prayers, using prayer beads, making offerings of water or a drink or food, or burning things like burning incense, burning herbs, burning oils, lighting candles, or even just sitting and offering up your time and your silence are all wonderful ways to be in that devotional space. I will mention that a devotional practice doesn't have to be aimed at personified deity. You don't have to be a hard polytheist to have a devotional practice. Your practice might just look a bit different to a hard polytheist, or it might not. I mean, I know a lot of soft polytheists, and myself included, whose devotional practices look, you know, very similar to hard polytheists' devotional practices. And just because I have a different way of understanding what's actually going on when I do that and what I'm communing with, doesn't mean that it's any less potent in a way. It's just a different kind of practice and a different way of looking at it. But I also think that it can be really meaningful and interesting to play around with making offerings just to Earth, to Gaia. Gaia not as a personified deity, but as kind of the ecosystem of Earth, maybe just to cosmos, to try making offerings to abstract concepts and just see how that sits with you. Try making offerings to change, or time, or death, or creation and destruction, or any kind of just abstract concepts like that that are kind of core components of the cycles of life. And that can be an interesting way of doing things as well. And for some people, like, you will maybe find it easier to work with personified deity, but I actually try to inject both of those kinds of devotional practices into my spirituality as a whole. Making offerings to kind of non-personified concepts isn't a part of my daily practice, but if devotion towards a personified deity just isn't your bag, that doesn't mean that devotion can't be part of your practice, and certainly doesn't mean that it can't be part of your daily practice either. So I would definitely have a think about that. Making offerings is it's a really wonderful way of expressing gratitude, I think, as well, just offering something back up. And finally, I just want to finish up by saying that a daily practice it's kind of essentially the act of bridging the divide between the kind of more mysterious, not of this plain kind of activity that happens in ritual and in sacred space, and then kind of the mundane activity of your everyday life. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that ritual can feel very separated from everyday life. I think ritual should be separated from everyday life. I think that there is a time and a place for feeling like you're doing something that is not of the norm. And I think having that in your life, having the space in your life to do something that is not normal for you, to behave in a different way, to just do something that you don't do every day. It can be very liberating, and it allows you to kind of have experiences and to tap into ways of being and modes of seeing things that you don't ordinarily kind of ascribe to. And I think that can be really nurturing and really important in spiritual practice, particularly for people who struggle with kind of that contrast between the logical mind, maybe being a logical atheist, and an emotional pantheist. I think, your everyday mind is probably thinking in a very pragmatic, kind of logical manner, and maybe not believing strictly in all of the things that you then go and express and do in ritual. And I think, that's fine, and sometimes it's important to have that sharp divide, like this is ritual space and this is ordinary life. But that being said, I also think that a spiritual practice should seep into ordinary life, and how that might happen can be different maybe to how you go into ritual. You might in that way want to actually definitely not do ritual every day, not try to do ritual every day, and to maintain some aspect of your spiritual practice, to keep them sacred for those moments when you really are entering into ritual and entering into that kind of altered consciousness, to kind of, I suppose, maintain its sacredness. And in a way, a daily practice is kind of allowing some of that to trickle into your everyday life and making everyday life more sacred, and reminding yourself of your kind of connectedness to everything, reminding yourself that consensus reality is not the only way to see things, and that your subjective experience is important and valid. There is a difference there between full-blown ritual and what you are actually trying to achieve and wanting to do with a daily practice. But while, like I say, it can be really spiritually nurturing for your kind of ritual self to be somewhat separated from your everyday persona, I also think that your spirituality should inform your persona, and that particularly over time, you will want to feel that your spirituality is more and more becoming imbued with your everyday life is becoming imbued with your spirituality, and there really should be no disconnect ultimately. So while, like I say, there's that time and space for a separated sacred space, a separated sacred time, that is above and beyond anything mundane and any part of your everyday activities, I think a daily practice is really vital in order to cultivate that sense of being spiritually centered, I suppose, and ultimately managing to achieve that feeling in yourself and to be the kind of person that you probably wanted to be, that your spiritual impulse has been drawing you towards in the first place. So I think that's probably covered everything I wanted to say about daily practice. Like I say, for the moment, this is going to be the end of the Paving Your Own Path series. It's been kind of fairly short and sweet. I think it was about 6 videos in total, which I think is probably a good number to kind of get the basics down. And like I say, I will be expanding on all of these topics in the future in various different forms, and I'm sure I will be getting back into these topics again on the channel very soon as well. I haven't really thought about, now that this series is over for the moment, about what I will focus on with the channel, but I've no doubt I will find things to be talking about. So take care, guys. As always, if you have questions and things that you want me to talk about, then you're absolutely welcome to comment below, and I will get back to you in some capacity or another. So I hope you've enjoyed the series, and thank you all for watching and for the wonderful feedback that you've given me. I really wasn't sure how helpful or that these videos really would be, but it seems that you have been finding them helpful, which is really, really great to know. Take care, all the best.